Following Chelsea's Champions League win, there was a hot debate raging between Jamie O'Hara and Trevor Sinclair about who was the bigger club in London. Is it Chelsea or is it Arsenal?
What they've achieved over the last 10 years has been incredible. I think the stadium needs work. Cobham's unbelievable as a training facility. I think you look at the playing squad and what they've achieved over the last 10 years. I think you have to look at them as the top club in London. I think Tottenham have got a long way to go. They've got the best stadium, obviously, but they've got a long way to go to match what Chelsea are doing. And obviously Arsenal, huge football club, but they're not doing it on the pitch. And unless they start investing in their playing staff, then they're not going to be number one in London. West Ham are doing really well. So, yeah, there's a lot of big clubs in London, but I do feel Chelsea are leading the way.
Disagree. Sorry, Trev. And I'm a Spurs fan, but you can't get away from the fact that Arsenal are the biggest club in London. And let's be, if you're going on history, if you're going on real success over a football club and fan base and everything that comes with a football club, I'm sorry, Chelsea are the most successful club right now in London. We know that. They've got the billionaire owner. They are the most successful club. If you're going,
how many decades do you have to go back before you start bringing Arsenal's results and silverware into play? It's a ludicrous argument.
But it is, because Trev. Listen, you can be classed as a stupid argument because they're both huge football clubs. But at the end of the day, if you're asking who's bigger, who is the biggest club in London, it's Arsenal.
Okay,
wow. So
that's what Jamie O'Hara and Trevor Sinclair had to say. The question is, who do you agree with? I don't know if this is going to be biased, but anyway, Ray?
I think globally, Arsenal are bigger than Chelsea. Yeah. Globally, if you go around Asia and that sort of, because they had that period, especially in Africa as well. I've been to Ethiopia, and it was when they started getting tellies in 99, 2000. They was watching Arsenal team very successful, and they go with the successful team at the time.
Yeah,
that's who they support. So you still got that sort of fan base. But the argument is, over the last 20 years, it's got to be Chelsea. I mean, 2 Champions League winners.
More Premier League titles than
Arsenal. So I'd love to say Arsenal, but if you're going to go the whole club itself over all the years, it's probably Arsenal, because you go by how many trophies they've won. But our last 20 years, definitely Chelsea, because I can't argue with that, because the trophies they brought in, and Premier Leagues, and all that sort of stuff. And
success.
So I'm sure every Arsenal fan will be realistic about it. I mean, Darren is an Arsenal fan yourself. I mean, we'd love to say, sit here and be very proud to say Arsenal, but over the last 20 years, globally, over the period, it's definitely Arsenal. But Chelsea are always catching up with another trophy they've won this season. They're getting more following across the world. But the last 20 years, I don't think anybody can have any complaints about Chelsea.
I agree. I mean, as you said, on a global scale, Arsenal is the bigger club in terms of fan base all over the world. But you're right, when you talk about success since certainly the last 20 years, the Premier League kind of era, it's got to be Chelsea. I mean, they've won more Premier Leagues, the 2 Champions Leagues. I mean, there's no argument. When you win the Arsenal,
that's one thing we didn't win, Champions League.
With the Champions League, they've won 2. So it's like, how can you kind of argue that? And you're right. Obviously, the longer it goes on, if Arsenal kind of continue in this kind of stage where they're at the minute in terms of the squad and not really competing for the biggest trophies, and Chelsea and Roman Abramovich keeps investing, they keep winning trophies, keep getting better players, then eventually it might start to even itself out, and then maybe Chelsea might take over. But certainly it's hard to argue with Chelsea
over
now.
the history, I think Arsenal won more trophies, haven't they? You
More
go back
titles.
to the 70s and whatever, or back in the 50s really, where they had very successful. But if you're going to last 15 years, I should imagine around the world, Chelsea have got stronger and stronger since Abramovich has gone in and spent the money. Because we all remember Chelsea was struggling at one stage. I mean, they was really struggling. Obviously, Ken Bates selling it for when he sold it. But they've come now and they've got stronger and stronger every single season, and now they're competing. Obviously, top 4. They're guaranteed to be in the top 4 more or less every single season. I know they've had here and there they might miss out. But Arsenal now, they're well away from the top 4 as we stand at the moment.
So what do they need to get?
There's got to be a big investment. I mean, it's very difficult, because if you're not in Europe, the top players sometimes will think, well, you've got to be a good salesman now if you're Arsenal, if you're in Arsenal, because you've got to really feel like the player's going to change it. So you've been part of our turnaround, because they remember when Henry played and they was winning the unbeaten season and all that sort of stuff. Players do remember that and look back on how big the history was then for the football club. So Edu, whether it's going to be Edu who's going to pick the players and whatever, they've got to make some big decisions. And obviously the owners now got to say, we need to take a gamble, because other teams won't stand still.
No.
You know, Man City would be looking for buy a striker, Haaland, or they'd be going out spending big money. Manchester United are going to go and spend big money. Chelsea will go out and strengthen again. Spurs will try and strengthen. Liverpool will certainly go out and strengthen. You can't just stand still. Brentford will go out, and of course they will. They're bringing 6 players this year.
No, but you're right. You can't stand still when
you
your rivals are doing so much more in the transfer market, and therefore it's paying dividends for them because of where they're finishing.
Well, it's not even about that in terms of numbers of what they're buying. It's got to be the quality.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem.
Well, they've got to highlight who they want to keep. Arsenal. They've got to go, so right, he's very important. He's very important. Certain players will leave, who said, well, I think they've come to the end of their careers at Arsenal, and then you've got to fight, right, the recruitment is so important.
Yeah.
Very, very important this summer.
Yeah, interesting to see what will happen with them.
talkSPORT Breakfast with Laura Woods. Monday to Wednesday mornings 6 till 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.